Next part, let's talk about hearing. Sound waves compress and expand in the air, and they travel through our ears. These waves are then turned into neural signals that be processed by our brain. Let's first look at the structure of our ear. Our ear has three parts: the outer ear, middle ear, and the inner ear. Sound waves travel through the out ear. Sound waves travel through the auditory canal from the outer ear to the middle ear. And our eardrum is situated in the middle ear. The outer ear collects and sends sounds to the eardrum. The middle ear has a chamber between the eardrum and cochlea containing three tiny bones: the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. These bones concentrate the vibration of the eardrum on the cochlea's oval window. The inner ear is the innermost part of the ear, containing the cochlea, the semicircular canals, and the vestibular sacs. Let's focus on the cochlea. The cochlea is a coiled, bony, and fluid-filled tube in the inner ear that transforms sound vibrations to auditory signals. You can see lining up on the back of the cochlea are auditory nerves. They collect the physical stimulation from the cochlea and turning it into neural signals to be analyzed by the auditory cortex on the temporal lobe. In terms of sounds, there are actually two dimensions. One of them is called intensity. That is also the loudness of sound. The intensity, the loudness of sound, is the amount of energy in a sound wave, determined by the amplitude, relates to the perceived loudness. The greater the amplitude, the louder the sound. The smaller the amplitude, the softer the sound. The loudness of sounds can also be measured by terms of decibels. Let me remind you of the way we measure absolute threshold. Using different intensities of sound input, we can measure the absolute threshold of hearing. And the amount of sound intensity that allows 50% of people to hear anything is termed 0 decibels. Aligned with sound loudness, we can measure different amount of sounds and give it decibel numbers. So a conversation like this is about 60 decibels, and a busy street corner is around 80 decibels. A loud thunder is about 120 decibels. There is a very important line I want to draw your attention to, which is about 85 decibels. Above 85 decibels, sounds become damaging to our ears. If you're exposed in an environment that is above 85 decibels for a prolonged period of time, you're prone to damage loss. There are such places in our living environment that is above 85 decibels. For example, a jet plane at 500 feet or a subway train at 20 feet are above 85 decibels and are a dangerous environment. So you can see people working in this environment usually wear very large headphones. But then the most dangerous place that are in our living environment is at a rock band concert. If you're sitting or standing at close range at rock band concert, the number of decibels can amount to as much as 140 decibels. If you're not wearing any protection, then if you're exposed to such an environment for an extended period, say an hour or so, then you're really in danger of hearing loss. So it is not surprising that a lot of our rock stars become quite deaf at an early age. Another dimension of sound is called frequency, also called pitch. This is determined by the wavelength of sound. The shorter the wavelength, the higher the frequency, the brighter the pitch. The longer the wavelength, the lower the frequency, and the more lower pitch sound it is. How do we actually localize the direction of sound? We can use the difference in time that the sound waves travels to one year versus the other year to determine the location of the sound. And we use our head as a buffer to shadow the sound. So we as humans can detect the time difference as small as 100,000ths of a second and use that as cue to localize the sound. In terms of localization of sound, we use both the intensity information of the sound arriving in both years and also the temporal differences. The senses of vision and senses of hearing are both physical senses. We use our eyes and our ears to turn the physical stimulation into neural signals.